Just like when the Sixers were up 5, you said that it was guaranteed that they won. It's game over, right? Well,
Shut the
now
fuck
let's
up.
put that down.
Introduce this to the people, AA Ron.
Put my wine down here. By the way, Galaxy Watch, new S20.
Nobody cares about your bad phone. Terrible phone. It's a terrible phone. That's okay. Continue.
Welcome to Big Facts. Mock Draft 2.0 Sunday night. Aaron Barrison here with Justin Everett. Sixers we'll get to at some point. We want to cover this mock draft. There's been a lot of free agent signings. A lot of teams have lost free agents. Justin's feeling pretty good about the Sixers, feeling good about the fact that he's not starting off with Jacksonville in tonight's draft. How are you feeling in general, bud?
How can you not be excited about the Sixers with no Ben Simmons, no Joel Embiid, no Seth Curry slapping up on the Kings? I mean, the Kings played probably the worst defense any NBA team has played this year in that game. But regardless, I mean, it was impressive to watch. I mean, Tobias Harris is still doing Tobias Harris stuff. It's pretty good, dude.
Yeah, Doc's doing a great job coaching, and you know, Matisse has been playing well. Dwight's been giving great energy. It's been good to watch. Deshaun Jackson did just get signed by the Rams. I don't care until he plays 10 games for some team. Good to know. It gives Stafford a deep threat. They're probably not going to use him as much because he really just can't stay on the field. We'll talk about that at some point. But there's been a lot of free agent moves that we have to talk about. Starting off with our draft, there's not much to talk about for the Eagles at this point. They're not making many moves. Before we start, Just, I want to know what your thoughts are on this whole – this is a tough thing to talk about, this whole Deshaun Watson situation. I have some thoughts about the situation. I know you weren't prepared to talk about this because we didn't talk about this coming on to the show. I have some thoughts. I want to know what you're making of the situation, given what we know about the owner and his connections with the lawyer, but not obviously disregarding what's being reported.
Well, Mama said, stay ready. You don't got to get ready. So I'm ready for everything, just so you know, for the future. Yeah. You can spring things and I'll be all right. So this is a difficult one because you never want to come out and say something like you don't believe a survivor of anything, right? And a lot of the allegations are really just weird shit, like just weird. He seems like a weird cat, you know, like you might have pressured a masseuse to flick his butthole. Like there's weird shit, dude. People like weird shit. Yeah. I think that like any other time, a person of any type of fame, one little story comes out, the masses flock, and anybody who felt uncomfortable tries to throw a lawsuit or throw allegations. How much of it's true? I don't know that any single person on the face of planet Earth but Deshaun Watson's going to know the answer to that question. But I do think it smells a little bit funny, bro. Like for this to be coming out now, to me, smells a little bit funny. I haven't seen enough. I don't think that this is a topic that should be tried in the court of public opinion. If this is a legitimate thing, then he needs to answer for the allegations against him. To me though, dude, it sounds a lot like Aziz Ansari a couple years ago, where, you know what I mean? He's just a fucking weird cat who makes people uncomfortable because he doesn't know any better. I mean, Adrian Peterson spent 10 years beating his kid with a stick, and until society told him to stop, he would never have done it. You know what I mean? So I feel bad for Deshaun a little bit because of the level of spotlight that's coming, again, with no proof for or against, really. And it is, dude. It's between the owner being so close to the attorney and the timing of everything. And, like, as soon as the rumors start to heat up again, all of a sudden a new allegation comes. It just smells fucking funny to me, dude.
Yeah, I don't again, to compound your point, I don't ever want to deny that something's going on. I like Deshaun Watson from his public persona. I don't know what he does personally, privately. We can make these people out to be whatever we want as far as how we view them publicly, but we don't know what they do on their own time. We don't know how they act with certain people. But if the allegations are he made somebody uncomfortable, but nothing actually ever happened, these are two separate things that we're going to be talking about. Sexual assault, I made someone feel uncomfortable. There was a text message that did come out as proof that he made someone uncomfortable. Beyond that, we don't know what happened. I'm not here to defend Deshaun Watson, but again, the timing is strange. The connection with the lawyer to Bob McNair is strange. The fact that all of a sudden 20 people come out is strange. But at the same time, if you look at like a situation like the Bill Cosby situation, we all looked at Bill Cosby. There's no way Bill Cosby did that. And then all of a sudden it comes out that he was literally like him and his wife knew he was drugging girls that were coming over.
And I mean, look, Bill Cosby's a good pull against, right? Because there was, I think it ended up being 47 or 48 legitimate accusations. And I think somewhere around half of them were proven to be true. Right. And again, just because some people came out and wanted to get their name out there, like that person's wrong for trying to catch a negative PR bandwagon, but it still doesn't take away from the 20 some odd real victims. And if Deshaun Watson sexually assaulted somebody, that has to be addressed.
Yeah, if he sexually assaulted one of them.
And Patrick brings up a good point. I mean, how has this been in civil court from Jump Street if there was something that was criminally wrong, right? Like sexual harassment will often end up in civil court because there's so very few legitimate, like written, easy to understand laws about. But he's not being accused of sexual harassment. He's being accused of sexual assault. So there's something fishy here, bro. Houston's trying to hold it together and not lose their franchise. I mean, there's cities that want look at what just happened to the Oakland Raiders. I mean, I thought my whole life Oakland would never leave. The Raiders never leave Oakland. And Las Vegas wanted a franchise, and they took the one in turmoil at the time. And Houston, I think, is just trying to hold on for dear life for what's going on because how bad they handled Deshaun Watson. And there is definitely something about this that is not above board. It's not by the book. And I don't know what it is, and we may never find it out, but there's something fishy going on.
Yeah, as more comes out, we'll talk about it a little more. So let's get into this mock draft. Last time we did this, we had a very early run of offensive linemen that I don't think is going to happen because one thing that we want to point out to you guys when we're going through this is there is very likely to be trades in the top 5 of this draft because there's teams between 5 and 12 that really need quarterbacks. So I can't imagine that teams like, if the Jets feel like they're going to go with Sam Darnold, if the Dolphins are sitting there at 3, if the Bengals feel good about Matt Ryan for the next couple of years, or the Falcons feel good about Matt Ryan, the Bengals have Joe Burrow, there's going to be some trades. I like the Panthers to trade up. I like Denver to trade up. And we'll see what happens in that regard. But we're going to pick these teams as if they're drafting in the position that they're in. So last time, Justin started off with pick 1, which is really pick 2 at this point because we all know Trevor Lawrence is going number 1. So it is my job at this point to announce 1, and Justin has the Jets at number 2.
We said Trevor Lawrence. There's no point to go down that bridge any further. I mean, let's talk about it for a second. Urban Meyer wants a college quarterback to run a college program on a bad franchise. It makes sense to take the best guy available. That's why Trevor Lawrence was my 1, and now you're 1. So the New York Jets are interesting. I think there's less than a 50% chance that they hold this pick. I really believe that they're a team that will trade down. If you get a team like Carolina offering 8, a 3 this year and a 2 next year, they need so much on that team. And if they're moving forward with Sam Darnold, they really need a ton. Yeah. You're going to be able to trade back to 8 to Carolina or 9 to Denver and still end up with a decent offensive lineman if you're moving forward with Sam Darnold, which is what I think they're going to do. So because I do believe they're moving forward with Sam Darnold and I can't make a trade here, the New York Jets at number 2, I look at what they need to build around. Corey Davis signing tossed me a little bit. That's really kind of what tells me that they really are going to try, I think, to build a team around Darnold. They've seen these other teams. I mean, the Carson Wentz bullshit that went down and, Cam Newton coming back to New England after the year he had. I don't think the Jets want to fuck around in that territory right now. There's not a quarterback that's good enough unless the number 2 pick has to do with a deal for Deshaun Watson. I don't think it makes sense to them. So Corey Davis tells me that they're building out the team. They need talent. I don't think they go wide receiver here. I would, if I'm the New York Jets, I would go Jamar Chase here because I think that he improves every team on this list. But I think the New York Jets are going to build around Sam Darnold. A guy that you've mentioned to me, you actually brought up in the last mock draft, who I really did a lot of research on between then and now. I think Christian Darrisaw is not only flying up boards. I think he's going to outdo Penny Sewell and Rashawn Slater. So I think he's just a big, mean, angry offensive lineman that can play guard or tackle. And that type of a player you can plug into a couple of spots only improves the New York Jets. So at 2, I'm going to say the New York Jets reach because this is what the Jets do. And they're going to draft Christian Darrisaw at 2, O-lineman.
They drafted a great left tackle last year. His name's slipping my mind right now, but Darrisaw is a nasty boy, man. Like, he is just a nasty, nasty dude, and I think they could use something like that on the offensive line.
Let me add this caveat before you get to the Dolphins right quick. If the Jets trade back to 8, I do believe it's possible Darrisaw lasts that long because Penny Sewell's been the number 1 guy and Slater's been the number 2 guy for so long, and you're really only looking at Atlanta and Cincinnati more than likely on the O-line ahead of that pick. I think that it's possible that Darrisaw is their guy, and that's what they're going to trade back for. So that's the reason why I'm taking him at 2 is because I think that's who the Jets are targeting, whether they stick at 2 or whether they come down to 8 or 9.
Okay. So the Dolphins, just based on what's happened this last week, they're in a position where they've lost some defensive pieces, but there's no one really in the top 10 or in the top 5 on defense that you're going to take. So I can't imagine that the Dolphins aren't also going to trade back and maybe look for some defense or look to add another weapon, but I have to pick them in the spot. They just defensive end Shaq Lawson because they lost a couple linebackers and they got McKinney from Houston. They lost their nose tackle, and then they signed a dude Justin Coleman. They took a chance on Isaiah Wilson from Tennessee that didn't work out. They had to cut a couple days later because he won't even come to camp. He had a bad run in Tennessee as a rookie. He's not going to play in the NFL again. So they still need offensive line help. If the Jets do go with a guy like Darrisaw and the Dolphins stay put where they're at, I'm going to have them taking Sewell at 3 and kind of trying to bolster the line for 2. They did just also sign, who was the wide receiver from the Texans? Will Fuller. So, they might pass up on getting a wide receiver like Chase. Chase wouldn't be a reach here. He would be a great pick, but they really need help on that line. I'm going Sewell here.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, if you remember when we go back, I had them drafting Rashawn Slater 3rd in our last mock draft. I do agree with you 100%, dude. If the Miami Dolphins sit at 3, it's because they know they need one of those top linemen to be able to play across that line. And we've learned so many times, dude. I mean, look at what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, from 2017 till now. When you have inconsistent line play, whether it's offensive line or defensive line, your team struggles. You need depth.
Yeah.
And they performed well last year, Miami's offensive line. I know that you're super high on them and say crazy things. I've tagged you on Facebook publicly to shame you. Thank you to all those who joined me in that because he's a fucking fruitcake. So the Atlanta Falcons at number 4. This one to me is really the most interesting of the top 5 picks because I feel like Atlanta needs to stay here. They have to pick somebody in the top 5 of this draft to get anything out of Matt Ryan further. But they're also a team that really needs offensive linemen. And I don't want to run 4 offensive linemen in a row again like we did last time. So I look at the Atlanta Falcons as a team that really over the last couple of years, dude, they used to have a pretty decent secondary. They drafted really well, Desmond Trufant, and they had a bunch of different guys back there that really performed. And that's really where they struggle now. Like, their offensive line needs some help, no doubt. But they don't really have a great defense down in Atlanta anymore. Now, it could be Dan Quinn's departure. It could be a lot of different things. But so I really do believe that there is a guy in the 7 to 15 range on the defensive side of the ball that's going to take the spot that Micah Parsons has held up until this point. You mentioned to me earlier today, Micah Parsons is just plummeting down draft boards, which is concerning for a middle linebacker. I mean, that really scares the shit out of me.
He's not going to end up falling that far, but he's being mocked to fall that far. He's not going to end up falling that far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he gets past 15. I don't think it's possible for a guy that had his ceiling.
Raw talent. He's the best defensive player on the board, right?
Exactly. But so I have a guy who I've been listening to. I've been hearing a lot of people tell me is interviewing well. I think that he is, in my opinion, I know he's not rated as the top, but I think he's the best defensive back in the draft. I'm going to have the Atlanta Falcons taking Patrick Surtain III at number 4.
So when I was going through this, I said to myself, I wouldn't be surprised, given how good the offense still is and the pieces that they still have, if they were going to go with one guy on defense and they needed help in the secondary, that's a great pick. I agree with that 100%. The Bengals, for me, this is a no-brainer. If those two linemen are, offensive linemen are already off the board and you got to get an offensive lineman, you go Slater. Now, interestingly enough, they've lost a couple guys. They lost 2 wide receivers. John Ross couldn't really stay on the field, but they lost A.J. Green to the Cardinals. And then they signed a couple DBs, to, not great DBs, not a great safety, but they signed a couple guys, and they signed a Woozy to a 3-year, $21 million deal, and an offensive tackle, and Riley Reef to a 1-year, $7.5 million deal, which gives them more reason to go get another offensive lineman and try to bolster that line, protect their franchise quarterback. I have the Bengals at this point going with Slater at 5.
So you don't think at this stage with some of the moves that they've made, they still have some cap room. They can bring in a couple of free agent offensive linemen. I really feel like if this is the way if 1 through 4 shake out the way that we just picked, I think that's Kyle Pitts all day long with Joe Burrow. I think that is a slam dunk.
My problem with taking a tight end is he's not always in the block, and you got a good running back and pass catching receivers. And the issue is, I know there's offensive linemen available, but you need to protect this guy for the next 5 years. And the way the cap has kind of gone down, you're at a point where hoping you're not picking this high in the future, and you need to protect your franchise quarterback for the next couple of years. He just tore his ACL, right? So you're going to pay this guy a lot of money. He's your franchise quarterback. He's going to be on a rookie deal for the next 4 years. If he gets hurt again, your next 4 years is trashed, right? You don't come back from 2 injuries on a guy that you picked number 1 last year and hope that he just stays healthy because you signed a couple 1-year deals for some offensive linemen. So it is interesting though, because I agree with your point, and Pitts is also a good blocker, but I just think you need to give him protection all the time for the next couple years.
So I don't necessarily disagree with you, which leads us into the Philadelphia Football Eagles, which is why I was so excited to have this opportunity to redraft and pick for them myself, especially because of the way that the board fell. So again, this is pretty easy, right, guys? Like last time we did this, Jamar Chase is on the board. Jamar Chase gets taken. But allow me a moment, if you will.
Sure.
I cannot in any way, shape, form, or fashion argue for an offensive lineman, whether it be at 6 or at 10 if they trade back. I can't do it. I can't do it. They don't need it. I think that they have enough youth and depth. They don't need an offensive lineman. They do need a little bit more pass rush. You're obviously hoping Josh Sweat takes the next step. You're obviously hoping that you get a little bit more production out of some other guys that you've had, but you need help there. Even for Rousseau, you're not reaching in the top 10. Most boards I've seen him the highest 12 or 13.
There's no defensive lineman coming off the board in the top 10.
So you've got Caleb Farley out there, who is, I think, the second best corner to Patrick Surtain. Surtain being off the board. I don't see how your offense struggled as bad as it did last year, and you can make a defensive move, which now leads me to what I really genuinely believe is going to be a war in the war room of the Philadelphia Eagles come draft day. And that is Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts are on the board, and what do we do? So it's easy to make the case, I think, right? So who does more? Kyle Pitts does more for your football team than Jamar Chase does, because he can play 3 positions. He can be a 6th offensive lineman as a blocking tight end. He can be a receiving tight end over the middle, and he can play wide receiver. I know a lot of people don't
You
understand.
could put him in the slot all day.
He could even play the opposite side of one of your speed guys and be a route runner. Yeah. He is an unbelievable athlete. I think probably the best athlete in the draft if you lined everybody up with athletic prowess. And I gotta pain a lot of people when I say this because 3 weeks ago I was anti, and you couldn't even mention his fucking name to me. But if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles and it's Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase, I have to take the better athlete. I am in a take the best player on the board mode, and Kyle Pitts is the best player on the board. So the Philadelphia Eagles at number 6 in our mock are going to draft the tight end / wide receiver Kyle Pitts at number 6.
There's a lot of talk about this, and I would argue just based on what I've seen, because you can make obviously the argument that it's interesting right now because we're actually getting down to the Lions, Panthers, and Denver, and one quarterback has come off the board, which is insane to me. And 2 mock drafts in a row where we have a run of offensive linemen. Is there a chance that out of this entire draft class that Kyle Pitts is actually the second best player on this draft board?
Well, here's the thing, bro. You know that I'm not a believer in Kyle Wilson. You know that I'm not a believer in Trey Lance. I am high on Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields, all said and done, will be the best quarterback of this class. It'd be hard for you to convince me that Kyle Pitts isn't the best athlete in this draft. The best. Like, I know Trevor Lawrence is a great quarterback in college, but Trevor Lawrence's athleticism is still not, I mean, it's like Lamar Jackson and the rest of the league, right? Kyle Pitts is that kind of athlete. That's so important to understand, and it's really what I've come to terms with over the last couple of weeks. He is that good of an athlete, and you are in a take the best athlete available position as the Eagles right now.
Yeah. So this is why we do a mock draft 2.0, because we had the Lions, and I think both of us had the Lions taking a DB. They have a defensive coach. They were terrible on defense last year, but they just brought a quarterback in that they traded, and they lost Kenny Golladay. So you're not going to leave Goff out on an island. You just made a trade for him. You got some assets. You have something to build. If Chase is there, you're taking Jamar Chase.
You take Jamar Chase. I agree 100%. You need – and look at what Calvin Johnson accomplished with Megatron, or with Matt Stafford. Jamar Chase can be your next Megatron, and Jared Goff is only like 26 years old. So if you can even get a little bit out of him, you know what I mean? Like, you're relevant again. I love that pick, dude.
Yeah.
So the Carolina Panthers. This is, to me, the spot where the which quarterback ran up the board in the last week of the offseason is going to be.
Yeah, sure.
This is a 2-horse race for the Carolina Panthers, and this race is Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Yeah. I think that because you have a young coach like Matt Rule down in Carolina, I think that Trey Lance is the likelihood here. So the Carolina Panthers are going to be faced with I think that they're out on Justin Fields because of the Ohio State factor that the media has blown way too far out of fucking proportion. But I think Trey Lance is going to have better workouts. I think he's going to get more hype. And I think Matt Rule, a coach like Matt Rule, who's young in the league, who wanted Teddy Bridgewater, wants a guy like Trey Lance that's an athlete over a quarterback, and I think it just makes sense for the Panthers. So they address their need. They have Teddy Bridgewater just in case when Trey Lance gets to camp, he's so far from ready. They have the guy there. And then when the season comes up, whatever guy goes down, they've got a trade asset to build up some more draft capital in the future. So I'm going quarterback out of North Dakota State, Trey Lance at number 8.
Lucky Denver, bud. John Elway's got a choice. John Elway's got a choice of Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. Now, here's the thing with this. You have some wide receivers that are playmakers. If I'm John Elway, and especially with the Denver fan base, it's going to be obviously, like you said, who shoots up the draft board in the last week, who's doing well. I think there's a lot of people that feel like Zach Wilson might be the second best quarterback on the like, oh my God, if I take him and he busts, I look like an idiot because he's just been shooting up the boards this last year. I have 2 years of evidence that tells me that Justin Fields might potentially actually be the best quarterback on this board. I've seen him outshine other people. And I think in the position that Elway's in, just having bad luck with quarterbacks for the last couple years, you kind of have to go Justin Fields over Zach Wilson at this pick. So if I'm Denver, I'm taking the guy that I think is ready to play right now and has outshined everybody in college, and I'm going on Justin Fields. So and it's only because it's Denver. Real quick, if the Panthers are in that position and they have one of those two to choose from because Trey Lance is off the board, I like Wilson because of the style of offense they want to play. So different GMs, different mindsets.
Well, yeah, I mean, Carolina doesn't have Jerry Jeudy. You know, it's that simple. I mean, Jerry Jeudy. A lot of people forget who Jerry Jeudy was. Jerry Jeudy had 11 quarterbacks throw to him last year. Like, Jerry Jeudy is the real deal, bro. Like, Justin Jefferson might have gotten all the flair, but Jerry Judy's the fucking real deal.
The beast. Yeah.
I agree 100% with what you said. Justin Fields may have a slightly lower ceiling than Zach Wilson does, but he has a much higher floor from where you're starting, and I think you take the surefire thing if you're the Denver Broncos. Again, because you've built the rest of the team. The defense is still pretty good. You've lost some pieces, but you're still pretty good, and you've built some good core O-linemen. You've got some good playmakers on offense. You need the quarterback. Justin Fields is the quarterback. So the Dallas Cowboys. This one is another one, man, where I got to tell you, this could go 17 different directions. I think the Cowboys are likely to use this pick. I don't think that they trade down. I think it's possible. I think it's possible if you see Kyle Pitts slide, like if you get to 7 and Kyle Pitts is still on the board, I think Dallas might be a player to run up a couple spots to get a playmaker like that for Dak. I mean, obviously their wide receiver core is great, but you don't have – Jason Witten has been missed in this offense. They brought him out of retirement because of how much they missed that option in this offense. So I think that they're a player up, not a player down, and I think Kyle Pitts is going to be well off the board and out of their reach. So, again, this is another team where pass rush always becomes a problem. On paper, this team should destroy everyone that comes up to them, and they just can't do it. I like a controversial trade back 8 spots and nab Najee Harris and push Ezekiel Elliott out of town, but we know that Jerry Jones isn't smart, so that's not going to fucking happen. So I look at O-line because they had a couple of guys retire the last couple of years. They've dealt with some real bad injuries. But I'm looking at what I have off my board. So I have Darisaw, Sewell, and Slater already off my board. So that really leaves me maybe Vera Tucker if I want to reach for a guard here, which they tried to do. You remember a few years ago with Lael Collins, and it worked out and it didn't, and it worked out and it didn't. I look at what this team needs, and they need depth, bro. So for me, the Dallas Cowboys are going to draft Caleb Farley at number 10 and feel like they got him 2 or 3 spots ahead of where he should have gone. I think they need help on that defense on every level, but I think having an anchor on the back end is a game changer for if that offense, and again, Dakota Prescott stays healthy, if that offense produces the way it seemed like it could have last year, shoring up that defense a little bit is going to do a ton. So I'm going to go Caleb Farley, defensive back at number 10.
The Giants pick becomes very interesting if both Zach Wilson and Devontae Smith are still on the board for a couple reasons. I first of all, I don't think they go defense, right? So you're trying to put either Daniel Jones in the you're trying to put Daniel Jones in the position to make the step to be your franchise quarterback, or you don't believe in him and you're ready to move on, right?
Right.
I truly believe that the Giants want to believe in Daniel Jones. I don't know if they should, but I think they really, really want to.
I don't disagree with you.
They seem to love him for some reason. And the Giants seem to want to play for him. I think you have to give him every opportunity if you feel that way. And if Devontae Smith, and we did this in our last draft, he was on the board at this point, and we took him. You have to go Devontae Smith.
With Kenny Golladay?
No, because I think now you have 1-2. They do two different things, right? Galladay's a true number one, a big frame receiver, can go up and get the ball. Devontae Smith's a speed guy. They don't really have, like, they're trying to make the Giants offense to be like this spectacular thing that's about to come. But like Sterling Shepard isn't that great, and Evan Ingram isn't that great. So you go get Devontae Smith. He's going to be your number two speed guys, your deep threat. It opens up the offense. Saquon Barkley's coming back. Make or break year for Daniel Jones. If he sucks, you're right back in the top 10 next year, maybe ready to take a quarterback.
All right, I don't hate it. I mean, I think to me, because of that Kenny Golladay signing, I would lean. I don't know that it would be defense. They do need help on the O-line, and again, I still think at 11, Vera Tucker is just a reach as a guard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, bro, I mean, they need so much. Could this be a? I mean, could this be a Micah Parsons at 11?
I was thinking that, but it's like, did they lose? They didn't lose anybody really on defense. They lost David Mayo.
As you said, bro, Micah Parsons genuinely as an athlete should be a top 7 pick this year, but he's going to slide. Understood. And how far do you let him? I mean, I don't hate Devonta Smith. I get exactly what you said. I would just have trouble passing on a guy like Micah Parsons right there.
I don't disagree with you, but when you have a team that if they could have played any type of offense last year, probably would have finished in the top 3 defensively. They were dominant for a couple weeks on deep. They were winning games like 9-7. So, like, do you really go out of your way to get another defensive player, or do you try to still bolster the offense because your other wide receivers just really aren't that great?
I get it, man. Again, I don't think you go wrong either way. Yeah, I don't think you go wrong either way with that. So, the San Francisco 49ers just, I mean, hit the fucking jackpot if you were to ask them about this end. Zach Wilson finally falls off the board here. San Francisco looks like they're going to attempt to move forward with Jimmy G. And again, Zach Wilson, just like Trey Lance a couple of picks ago, Jimmy Garoppolo can get you through a season. If Zach Wilson comes into training camp and his head is spinning off of his fucking shoulders, you can move forward with Jimmy Garoppolo and let Zach Wilson mature into being a better player and not have the pitfalls a lot of guys on bad teams do have. So Zach Wilson's a no-brainer here for me, San Francisco. Again, if they're sold on Jimmy Garoppolo, this is an obvious Micah Parsons spot. I mean, the things that team does with linebackers are fucking unbelievable. That would be a match made in heaven. But this is Zach Wilson all day long at 12. San Francisco needs help there. They can figure out if they've got the guy. And again, just like you said about the Giants, if Jimmy G gets hurt again and Zach Wilson doesn't turn out to be the guy, they're probably drafting ahead of where they are at 12 now. Take another shot next year. You can't pass on the opportunity at Zach Wilson.
So the Chargers lost a lot of defensive players in free agency, but they have a franchise quarterback who was breaking records last year.
Word.
And if, again, I don't think there's always a chance that any, like a tight end just in the draft in general can fall down a draft board. So obviously if the perfect fit, I think, in my opinion, for the Chargers is either an offensive lineman who they'd have to reach for in this spot based on how our board's fallen, or Kyle Pitts if he happens to be there just to give him another weapon, another blocker, etc. I actually, in this situation that we're in right now, really like a Jalen Waddle reach here for Justin Herbert. And I'm going to have them getting him another weapon and having an explosive offense and going with Waddle for the Chargers. Now, it's very possible, obviously, that they go defense. Again, Micah Parsons would be a guy that they could highly consider in this position, given that their defense help.
Woj just tweeted breaking news in the middle of the mock draft. Charlotte guard LaMelo Ball expected to miss the rest of the season with a fracture to his right wrist. Anyway, so Jalen Waddle at 13, bro. We'll get to basketball when we're done the draft. We got to talk about the Sixers anyway.
That's terrible.
Jalen Waddle, I mean, it is a reach, I think. I think he's more of a 16 to 20 player, but I don't hate it, man. I mean, you got, again, like you laid out, dude, Justin Herbert was the biggest, best surprise of last season, and why not give him more? I mean, I get it.
Well, listen, there's guys right now that if you talk like, and I don't believe this personally, but they're watching Waddle's tape and they're saying that they think he could come off the board before Devontae Smith. I don't
listen, I get it. Waddle just gives you feel more comfortable with Waddle, I think, is really what it comes down to.
Sure.
So here's something that's interesting, right? So the Minnesota Vikings, I hope we all can look each other in the eye honestly and say that the Kirk Cousins era is not going to last much longer. It simply
get a lot of money though, right?
Yeah, but it can't last much longer. It just can't. You have Justin Jefferson, you have Adam Thielen, you have too many things that you're going to have to sacrifice to hold on to a mediocre quarterback. Or if our good buddy and producer Jeff Bird goes, the fuck that guy, because he thinks he's the worst piece of shit in the human history of kind. So I'm going to do something crazy here. So to me, there's a right way to go and an understandable way to go for the Minnesota Vikings. If you are going all in one more again, like you tried when Stephon Diggs was still there, you go Micah Parsons here to anchor your defense and just give you another piece. Micah Parsons is obviously the fit here, but I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to guess that the Minnesota Vikings have a little bit of forethought and a little bit of self-awareness to understand where they are as a franchise. And I'm going to guess that whoever runs that team listens to my buddy Aaron Barrison and explains how you can't win Super Bowls unless you have a quarterback on a rookie contract.
Well, they're not even close, though, right?
I think the Minnesota Vikings like him enough to believe that Mac Jones is going to take the torch from Kirk Cousins and run into another 3 or 4 years of mediocre success. So I am going to go one Mr. Mac Jones at number 14, quarterback out of Bama. And the Minnesota Vikings are preparing for tomorrow because they're a Midland team, obviously drafted at 14, and they're preparing for life without Kirk, and they hope that they can sign some guys with his money.
I think you did that just to take away my pick from the Patriots. That's what I think.
I picked him with the Patriots last time. You remember that. But the signing of Cam Newton says to me, without a doubt, there's no way Bill Belichick takes quarterback in the first round this year.
So let's go over the Patriots real quick, just given that we're in this spot.
I don't know that we have enough time, bro, because they signed fucking everybody.
We got 23 minutes. All right, so let me give a little rundown here. So Cam Newton, Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, trade for Trent Brown at the offensive tackle spot, signed 2 centers, one of them David Andrews, 4 years, $19 million, $6.5 million guaranteed, took the nose tackle from Miami, signed Kyle Van Noy, signed Matt Judon, signed Jalen Mills, signed Justin Bethel. There's a couple of those guys just because they play for the Patriots that are going to end up being Pro Bowlers. The defense is stacked. I'd be surprised. Now, this is another spot where, like, I think Bill Belichick would be like, Micah Parsons is there. I plug him in at linebacker. He's got all these vets around him. We're going to be a great defense. But I am not going to go, I don't think, in that direction. Let me just take a look at this board real quick. All right.
I got one I love, bro. I love it.
I'm gonna give Cam Newton a little help here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with somebody that's gonna take a load off Cam Newton because he's gonna be running the football a lot. He has some wide receivers, and I'm gonna go with Najee Harris.
There it is. There it is.
I'm gonna give him a workhorse to hand the ball off to 3-4 times every time they have the football. I think that would be a great fit for them, and it's an offensive weapon. That they can.
Bro, the moment I decided to pick Mac Jones at 14, I said in my brain silently, please take Najee Harris to Bill Belichick. I want to see what Bill Belichick does with a guy like this.
Yeah.
Young, fresh, hungry, ready to go. I think Dude, I think he might be rookie of the year being drafted at 15. That's how good he can be.
Because here's the other thing, right? If Cam Newton for the second year, just let's say he just gets you to 9 wins, you're not expecting Cam Newton to take you into a deep playoff run. You're expecting them to get you to a point where you can control the clock, play defense, and win some football games, right?
Sure.
So realistically, you get the running back, you get all these guys on defense. They're all coming back, a lot of them the next year. You can always take a quarterback the next year. They find the guy in the late first round that they're going to be able to plug in. They might find a guy that they like. They might take Kyle Trask in the second round and have him sit a year and start him the next year. So I like that pick for them.
Arizona Cardinals are going to add to what I think is probably the most underrated signings of free agency this year. I don't think people understand how big AJ Green could be. His health is obviously the question, right? But this is the first time he's going to not need to be the guy that catches every fucking ball across from DeAndre Hopkins, and having what seems to be a returning Larry Fitzgerald to play in the slot a little bit too, which opens up AJ Green also into the slot. I think AJ Green is going to have a year nobody expects. This is a Vera Tucker spot for me. I think logically, but I'm not doing it because I can't. Micah Parsons is going to go spend 10 years anchoring the best defense in the NFC. I think that Arizona gets an absolute steal at 16 by just standing there and waiting for the rest of everything to fall down to them. They made all the right moves in free agency. They get an anchor at inside linebacker in Micah Parsons, and I think they are a monstrously improved team compared to last year.
They would be thrilled. And this is actually the second draft that we have Parsons falling to Arizona. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's the best defensive player on the board outside of the DBs maybe, but he still might be the best defensive player. For whatever reason, he's falling down the boards. We'll see what happens. The Raiders are a mess this offseason. They need a lot of help, but they run their offense through
so much from the last draft, bro. The Raiders were so much clearer a couple of weeks ago. This is crazy.
They've lost everybody. This is a spot where realistically you run your offense through Josh Jacobs. You want to control the clock. You're going to be a bad football team. You take Elijah Vera Tucker. You bolster the offensive line. You run the football. You see what happens next year. I think that would be probably an easy pick for him if Micah Parsons comes off the board. I think if he's there, it's Micah Parsons. If not, it's Elijah Vera Tucker. He's just probably the right guy to pick in that situation.
Okay. I don't hate it. Miami at 18 is the really difficult Miami pick. I think the third pick can go a lot of different ways, but I think being able to get Penei Sewell like they did in this draft is huge. So, I mean, we don't need any more offensive line help. We've addressed that at 3. I mean, if you had a slide of Devontae Smith here, I think you lean that direction. Kadarius Toney is on the board right now, and I know that he's a guy that's been getting a lot of airtime the last couple of weeks. But I think that Miami's got to they shored up the O-line. I think they need to shore up their D-line. I know the pass rush is not hurting, but it never hurts to have more. Greg Rousseau, I know that you like Quit, but Greg Rousseau to me is probably the second most underrated player in this draft to Micah Parsons right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Miami ends up with Rousseau, who is the best pass rusher in this draft at 18. And they develop an edge that's going to be 2017 Eagles-esque, bro, when they had so many guys that could come, that defense is going to stay dominant. So if I'm the Miami Dolphins, I take Rousseau, edge rusher, at 18, and I address the offense and defense in the first 20 picks of the draft.
So Washington's now in a select the best player spot, so to say. Their defense is really good. They've got a guy for a year. There's not really a QB on the board at this point that you would reach for because all those guys are falling to the second round. They're not going to draft a defensive lineman because their defensive lineman's stacked, and Kwity Paye and all those guys are going to make a run at some point off the board because they're all still available. I think at this point, you either want to go you probably want to go with whoever you think is the next best wide receiver on the board. And there's a couple guys. There's Elijah Moore. There's Terrace Marshall Jr. And then there's Bateman over at Minnesota. I'm going to say they take one of those wide receivers.
No Kadarius Toney?
What's that?
No Kadarius Toney for you?
He's not that high on my board.
Okay.
So I'm going to go. There's also Tevin Jenkins is still there, by the way, so they could bolster their offensive line. I am going to go with Elijah Moore to give them another weapon, give Fitz another weapon, see how it works out, and they're going to have to wait a year to draft the quarterback they want, unless they believe that the Heineke's their guy, which I obviously signing for Patrick, they don't believe that Heineke's their guy. I thought they did. They obviously don't. Bateman could be a spot there, and Tevin Jenkins could be a guy that they take there too. I don't think they don't have a need for a running back or a defensive end or a defensive tackle.
So the Bears tagged Robinson. They're obviously going to try to keep that offense as together as possible. The Red Rocket moving forward, I don't know how the fuck you make up a world where Andy Dalton, at however old that fucking loser is an upgrade over your 25-year-old quarterback, even though his name is Mitchell Trubisky. Blows me the fuck away. Speaking of which, shout out to Mitch Trubisky, because that motherfucker might win a Super Bowl behind Josh Allen and never have to take a snap. So well done.
Buffalo just won kind of, because Trubisky could start on some teams, but he's that's a great backup to have.
It's the best backup that was available this season. It really is.
Yeah.
So I think the Chicago Bears make a smart decision. They put Kwity Paye across from Jesus Christ. That just left me. Did you watch that happen? Yeah. Khalil Mack, thank you. Kwity Paye and Khalil Mack will probably make the first or second best edge rushing combination, maybe to Washington.
Right.
And I think Kwity Paye instantly makes that team a little bit better. They still don't compete. Nick Foles probably sees the field because somebody's going to take Andy Dalton's fucking head off.
Somebody's going to get hurt, yeah.
I mean, Andy Dalton's just made of fucking glass, bro. So, I mean, listen, I kind of like this draft, though, the way that it falls out. Again, I do want to say this. I'm just going to reiterate what you said when we started. There is literally a 0% chance that our boards are anywhere close to right, because there will be at least a couple trades in the top 8 picks.
Yeah.
So this is what it is if it stands pat, guys. If Roger Goodell comes out and says no trades on draft day, this is how it'll happen.
Yeah, that was a good run. That was a lot different than how we had the first one going based on the signings. There's going to be a couple more signings. These teams are moving slow. There's issues with cap. There's going to be guys that are going to get injured halfway through the season that just aren't going to get signed until 4 or 5 games in. That would start almost any other year on a lot of teams. So it's going to be that kind of year, just given the cap situation. That was a good mock draft. At number 2, we had Darrisaw, the offensive lineman from, I believe, Tech. Might be the first offensive lineman on the board, Chad. So we'll see how that plays out, and maybe we'll do one more just after some pro days. We'll wait for the pro days, wait for the combine when they have it, see who's shooting up, and do one more maybe a week before the draft, which is end of April, I believe, 3rd week of April. So real quick, I want to, before we get into some basketball and some Sixers, there's this, I might piss a lot of people off here. I hope I don't, because I'm just presenting facts. There's this meme going around comparing LeBron James and Sue Bird and their accomplishments and then what they get paid. And everybody's like, oh, inequality. Just because there's a man and a woman involved doesn't mean that there's inequality. Let's put it in perspective, guys. NBA, billion-dollar company. Players get a percentage of what these massive companies make. So obviously, there's way more people that watch the NBA than the WNBA. It just has nothing to do with that. If you want these players to get paid more, then flip on a WNBA game and sit down and get your popcorn ready and watch the WNBA games. If you're not going to sit down and watch the WNBA game, there's nothing to talk about, because they're not going to operate in the negative by paying their players millions of dollars.
Hey, Ron, are you a fan of The Office?
Yeah, I've watched The Office.
So I've seen The Office at a bare minimum probably 15 or 16 times from beginning to end.
Okay.
It's what me and my wife put on as white noise. I can quote almost every episode. And Dwight Schrute has a phenomenal quote in one of the episodes where he says, NBA, WNBA. One's a sport, one's a joke. I like sports, I like jokes. There's room for everybody. Yeah, no, that's silly. I'm sorry. I have nothing to add to that. That is silly. It's like comparing a 12-car guy with a 60-car guy and saying, why do they get paid different? Because they produce different results, Karen. Because they make different amounts of money for their organization. Therefore, they get paid more money. It's not inequality. It's just
people post memes and take it as fact with no context, and that's just how the world works. So I wanted to give it some context. I know we don't have a lot of women watching our show, so it doesn't really matter that much. But just put it in perspective for a second. Justin doesn't get paid $500,000 a year at his car dealership. Well, he might actually be able to based on the margins that the owner's making. So maybe that's a bad comparison.
I'm good at my job, but I'm not that good, I promise you.
To get the point. Okay, let's go on to the Sixers. So Ben Simmons, after 2 nights of rest, has a little bit of a knee issue, I guess. Warming up one game, sits out when they're playing the Kings. They've been on a little bit of a run without Joel Embiid. I think they've lost one game since Embiid's been out.
Yeah.
Okay. That game was 4th game in 6 nights, I want to say, against a good basketball team. So Ben Simmons and Embiid are out the other night, and the Sixers mollywopped the Kings. Not that the Kings are a good team, but given how this team looked the last couple years, A, without Embiid, and then B, without Simmons and Embiid, I find a 15, 20-point win to be extremely impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not only without your 2 major superstars. Your best by percentage 3-point shooter was also out of that game. You had no Seth Curry. Tobias Harris has been – listen, somebody told Tobias Harris that people were talking shit. That's what happened. Like, can we just be real? Tobias Harris came to work one day and said, oh, you want to talk shit to me? Hold on, guys. Let me show you what I'm about. And now Tobias Harris is fucking balling out of his mind. With Joe on the floor, without Joe on the floor, with Ben on the floor, without Ben on the floor. Toby's getting his. And the offense is being fed through. I mean, 6 weeks ago, our offense was very simple. Get the ball down to Embiid is option A. Ben drive down the lane and kick out to an open shooter was option B. And the third option was give Toby the ball and let him go make something happen. And over the last couple of weeks, man, Toby is the second option. Toby's Zach LaVine right now. I don't care what anybody says to me. Tobias Harris is averaging 25 points a game right now. Tobias Harris is Zach LaVine right now. He's playing ISO basketball. He's getting good shots. He's efficient. He's blown me away. And that's what you need out of that guy. Your third guy has got to be able to take the reins when he needs to. And as for Ben missing this game, bro, Ben went out there and probably had a sore leg and looked up and said, this is the Sacramento fucking Kings, guys. I'm just going to sit this one out. I don't feel like playing tonight. Rest game, fucking sore knee, tell them I sprained an ankle. I don't give a shit. I'm not playing tonight. And that's what it was, man, because they knew that they could beat that team. And this swag that these guys have, it's not cocky. It's earned. And this is what Doc Rivers is giving to this group of guys, bro. This is not Joel Embiid 4 years ago where he was cocky and arrogant. This is, bro, I'm the best player in the world. Look at what I just did. I did that. I'm the best player in the world. And he's owning it. And he's creating this culture. Dude, Doc Rivers is the best thing to happen to Philadelphia sports in a long time. And I respect it. And I think the Sixers have got a way better chance than most people believe, and I think you included, of winning the East without much of a struggle this year.
It's still possible. And listen, the Nets are without Kevin Durant. Right now, it's really a 2-team race. I think the Bucks are good, but I feel like they just were. When I watch them, I'm like, they were playing better last year. They just were. I mean, they might something might happen and they might take the 1 or 2 seed, but the continuity is much different than it was last season. And I don't know exactly what happened, but maybe teams have figured out Giannis a little bit. Maybe their defense is.
Remember, we said this the other day when they were playing, when we were on. If Joel Embiid plays in that game, the Bucks lose by 15. But there's no overtime. And that is really where the problem lies. They don't match up against healthy teams in the elite level teams of the East.
So 2 things have happened in the last week that we'll touch on real quick. We got about 5 minutes left. LeBron James gets injured actually for the second, I guess this is the second time in 3 years. Groin problem 2 years ago, only kept him out a couple weeks, but you could tell he just wasn't quite the same when he came back. Couldn't get into the playoffs with the squad that they had. Hurts his ankle this year, last game. He stays on the court and hits a 3, and then hops off the court, and it's reported he got a high ankle sprain. That's, first of all, it's extremely impressive that he went out with a high ankle sprain and hit a 3 and then walked off the court. But the age and the minutes are just starting to catch up.
Yeah, how could they not?
The dude never got hurt, right? He was like Iron Man.
Bro, Michael Jordan, when he played for the Washington Wizards, when he was fat and old, right? Like, it's not that bad yet, thank God. But LeBron's body's never broken down on him ever before. So the fact that these little ticky-tack things are coming, as much people want to talk shit on how many games does Joel Embiid actually play this year? LeBron's in that stage, man, where just to preserve himself now, he's probably got to play 68 out of an 80 because you need him for 12 to 16 at the end of the year. You need that. So, I mean, it sucks. It's a shame. I'm really kind of pissed off that the 2 frontrunners for the fucking MVP are out right now. That's the worst part. I know that you said something silly as we were coming on that James Harden was going to be the guy that won by default, and that's just fucking ape shit. Let's all just recognize how
who's the guy?
It's Damian Lillard. It's Damian Lillard. You can't make it James Harden. The optic of what they allowed to happen in Brooklyn this year, what they let go down, and all of the favoritism this league has shown the Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant more specifically, you can't. Not even deserved. Who gives a fuck? He might be the best player in the history of time for the next 6 weeks, and we're going to have to admit that he was. He can't win it. It's Damian Lillard. They don't give Dame any credit.
Yeah.
They don't give Portland any press. It's Dame. If you end the season with Joel Embiid and LeBron James out, it's got to be Dame. It can't be James Harden. It just can't be.
Well, they'll both end up being back, but they're going to have ridiculous runs when they get back. Obviously, KD's been out too long to have a shot at winning it. Nikola Jokic has been talked about. I've watched the Nuggets. I think it's great.
Real quick, by the way, can I just say, I fucking told you so. I know you had a couple of stretches during this season so far where you were like, oh, look at Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is not Kevin Durant. He's mostly Kevin Durant. Yeah. He's a lot more Kevin Durant than I thought he'd be. But I was a little bit right.
A month with a hamstring is not what I expected, but it is what you expected. Listen,
bad, bro. I really do, because I don't believe that we're going to get this season a full 100% Joe is the best player in the world versus a healthy Brooklyn Nets team. And that sucks, because I know as a Philadelphia fan, bro, you've been a Philly fan your whole life. What are they going to say about us? They're going to say, oh, well, the Sixers won because, Kevin Durant was hobbled up and Kyrie Irving sprained an ankle and it wasn't real, like they did to LeBron against Golden State. This is what they do, and especially against Philly, and that fucking irritates me.
So first, let me ask you this real quick, because I know we both are not fans of Kyrie Irving.
Hate him.
But you've watched the Nets this year. No, they're not going to pick them. My question is, if we didn't hate Kyrie so much and the media didn't hate Kyrie so much, I was just watching him before we got on here. He had like 25 points on like 12 shots. If he didn't do what he did at the beginning of the season and go haywire for 2 weeks and just was a mental case with the media, he'd be being talked about right now.
So I'm going to tell you something crazy that I think you're going to agree with 100%, but it's going to be one of those things where you would have never said this out loud yourself, but when you hear it, you agree with it, because that's how it happened to me. I never would have thought this, and then I heard somebody else say it, and I went, holy shit. Kyrie Irving is Allen Iverson. It's that simple, right? I mean, Allen Iverson was controversial. He was a nut job. He changed the ideology of how people thought about the NBA. Now, Kyrie is not nearly as influential as what Allen wound up being.
Sure. Yeah.
But Kyrie's career, not this anomaly of one small sample of the season, his career, He's an inefficient scorer. But he can still give you 40. He might need to take 35 shots to get there, but he's going to motherfucking get there.
This year he's efficient, but his entire career he hasn't been.
He's got an unbelievable handle. That is his entire game, and he's not the best teammate in the world. That is Allen Iverson. That's who he is. And I heard that, and I went, holy shit. If Allen Iverson were today, right? Like if we didn't have Allen when we did, if he showed up today, he's Kyrie Irving.
My only issue with that is what I saw Iverson do as the alpha scorer on a team, and Kyrie's never been able to do that. He's never been able to
get into a team where LeBron James' shoes were left to fill as the alpha. And Allen might have had that extra edge because Allen was an edgier guy than Kyrie. There's no doubt about that mentally. But
their games are about the same. I can agree with
identical.
That,
yeah. And I mean, that's what I really believe. You look at Allen, bro, up until 01, 02, 03, and then 04 when they got somewhere. 04 was AI's most like that. When that team reached the peak and then crumbled, the 18 months before the crumble, Allen Iverson was not as inefficient. He wasn't as bad a teammate. Like he tried to do as much as he could. A lot like Kyrie did in Boston, right? It's just he was too much solo act, and that was a problem, bro. And that's the same problem I have with Kyrie. Kyrie wants to be the solo act, and that's not how this league works anymore.
Yeah. So real quick, closing thoughts from myself, and I'll let you take a minute after this. I feel, first of all, I was really enjoying watching LaMelo highlights all year. And I'm not devastated that he went out, but I feel bad for the Hornets organization. I feel bad for him because I thoroughly enjoy watching him have fun and play basketball. Sure. Also, they are in the 8th seed right now, and they're not going to hold on to it because he's out. He's been one of their best players, if not their best player.
Oh, the best on that team.
Yeah. The Pacers and Bulls are right behind them. The Bulls just don't have enough. I think the Pacers will work their way into that spot. The good thing, Just, is that the Raptors are kind of falling. They're the 11th seed right now, which could line up the Sixers. Most of the rumors are pointing toward the Sixers. If they can't get Kyle Lowry, they're just going to get depth and shooters. Kyle Lowry is the best case scenario. Depth and shooters are the worst case scenario. But Morey's going to make some moves. We'll see what happens. Closing thoughts for you.
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think Daryl Morey is going to do Daryl Morey shit. I think if Joel Embiid does not push himself to come back faster than he should, I think that this team is going to make a deep run. I've heard a lot of people the last couple of weeks listening to national and local radio. People are starting to recognize, especially since he's been out, Joel Embiid is the best basketball player in the world. You shared on Facebook a couple days ago a highlight reel of what Embiid's done this year. And somebody has this motherfucker, bro. He's got guard handles at 7'1", 280 pounds, and just owns it. He's my favorite basketball player I've seen in I don't want to say since LeBron came, or I don't want to put it on one guy. I'm more excited watching him than a lot of people most of my life. And I just want everybody to appreciate that, man. Hang on for the ride, and it's not just this year. Ben's here for I think 3 or 4 more. Joe's never going to leave this city. They will pay him whatever it takes, no matter what. They've got some time, but this team looks fun, dude. I cannot fucking wait for playoff matchups with Doc's ability as a coach and the athletic ability of this team, dude. I'm super fucking excited for it.
Yeah, good shit. So we'll be back on Wednesday. Get it right this time. Wednesday, either 9 or 10 p.m. We'll let you guys know. We'll cover some NFL moves. Maybe we'll talk about the Eagles. We'll probably talk some Phillies, and we'll definitely talk some Sixers basketball. We'll see you guys Wednesday. Big Facts on all streaming platforms. If you haven't followed the Big Facts Facebook page, because that's actually where we can see all your comments, and we'll be back with you guys Wednesday night.
Peace, brother.